You've seen the headlines, right? They're everywhere. Mass layoffs, fears of a recession, just a ton of economic uncertainty. But this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about real people, real lives being turned completely upside down. So, what is actually going on? Well, in this explainer, we're going to connect the dots and figure out why all of this is happening right now. And it all feels so much more real when you hear the personal stories. This quote, it's from a LinkedIn post by a guy named Himanshu. He spent a fortune to move his entire life to Canada for what he thought was his dream job at Meta. And then just 2 days after starting, he was laid off. It's a shocking story. And the thing is, he's not alone. So many others, like a woman named Neelima, shared almost the exact same experience, hired and then fired by Meta in just a matter of days. Right, so these aren't just a few sad stories or isolated incidents. This is a massive global trend, and it's hitting some of the biggest, most powerful companies in the world. So to really understand what's going on, we've got to peel back the layers of the global economy. Okay, first things first. Let's just try to get our heads around the sheer scale of this problem by looking at some of the shocking numbers. The biggest shockwave, the one that really got everyone's attention, came from Meta, Facebook's parent company. They laid off 11,000 people. That's 13% of their entire global workforce. Now, for a company that had never, in its 18-year history, had a single major layoff, this was a huge signal that something fundamental had changed. But believe me, they are far from alone. And yeah, it's not just Meta. Not by a long shot. These cuts are happening right across the board, from absolute giants like Amazon and HP, all the way to the super dynamic startup scene in India. What this really shows is a massive course correction for the whole sector. And that's not even counting all the companies that have just slammed the brakes on hiring altogether, which puts a real chill on the entire job market. So, to really get why this is happening, we need to quickly get on the same page with 3 key economic terms. I promise, once you get these, the rest of this story is going to click right into place. First up, GDP. It sounds super technical, right? But it's actually pretty simple. Just imagine a country is like a giant shopping mall. Its GDP is just the total price tag of every single thing sold in that mall over a certain period. Everything from cars to coffee to haircuts. It's basically the nation's total sales number. That's it. So here's the crucial link. When people like you and me spend less money, the country's GDP goes down. And if it keeps going down for 6 months straight, well, that's what we officially call a recession. And what happens in a recession? Companies make less, they produce less, they hire less, which is exactly why they so often lead directly to layoffs. And finally, inflation. We've all been feeling this one, right? It's that feeling when your money just doesn't buy as much as it used to. It really is just basic supply and demand. When everybody wants something and there isn't enough of it to go around, the price goes up, soaring really. Just think about the crazy demand for masks and hand sanitizer at the very beginning of the pandemic. That's inflation in a nutshell. Okay, with those terms in our back pocket, let's look at the first huge catalyst that basically threw a giant wrench into the world's post-COVID recovery and sent everything into chaos. So, back in February 2022, the war in Ukraine kicked off this massive economic domino effect. Western countries hit Russia with heavy sanctions. Now, why does that matter to the rest of us? Well, because Russia is one of the world's biggest exporters of absolute essentials, like wheat, oil, and natural gas. So those sanctions effectively choked the global supply of all these critical things we depend on. The results? Well, it was immediate and honestly pretty predictable. With supply way down but demand staying the same, prices for essentials like food and gas just went through the roof. The US and Europe saw inflation hit double digits, creating this severe cost of living crisis. I mean, it got so bad that some people in Europe were reportedly taking cold showers just to save some money on their winter heating bills. Crazy. Okay, so that's the big global picture. But now let's zoom in on the tech sector specifically. Because while the war was a huge global shock, tech companies were dealing with their own very unique problem. And it was one that had been brewing for a while. Think about it. During the pandemic, the whole world went digital basically overnight. Tech companies couldn't hire people fast enough to keep up with the demand. It was this massive hiring spree. They were offering double salaries just to get the best talent. But then the world started to reopen, and that crazy digital demand, it started to slow down. Suddenly, these companies looked around and realized they were bloated, totally overstaffed for a market that was cooling off. A correction was pretty much inevitable.
But Facebook's situation, wow, it was particularly bad. They were hit by an absolute perfect storm. First, they poured billions of dollars into this huge risky bet on the metaverse, and investors were not convinced. The stock plummeted. Then, Apple rolled out new privacy features that let you stop apps from tracking you, which completely decimated Facebook's main business, their advertising model. The result of all that? The single largest tech layoff of the year.
So you have this global inflation crisis colliding head-on with a tech sector correction. Given all these factors, what on earth happens next?
While the forecasts are, frankly, pretty concerning, some of the world's top economists are really sounding the alarm. Nouriel Roubini, a guy who actually earned the nickname Dr. Doom because he correctly predicted the 2008 financial crisis, he's on record saying he thinks this recession will be longer and even more severe than 2008. He's even predicting a potential 40% drop in the stock market. When he talks, people tend to listen. And look, this isn't just theoretical stuff for the future. We are already seeing the real-world impact of all this. Startup funding, which is the lifeblood of innovation, has plummeted by a staggering 73%. Hiring in key tech hubs has dropped by 18%. And the broader economic models are suggesting that as many as 3.3 million more jobs could be lost across developed countries as this downturn continues. So here's the key takeaway. These huge, interconnected global forces, everything from a war in Europe to a simple privacy change on your iPhone, they have a direct, tangible impact on our financial security and our careers. And that really leaves us with a pretty provocative question to think about. In a world of constant disruption, is any job truly safe?